And we're back on the Morning Brew, and this segment is brought to you by our friends at ABQ Arts and Entertainment, who have now formed an alliance with ABQ Free Press, and you get the same arts and entertainment coverage, but with that extra investigative journalism that ABQ Free Press brings. So it's a great collaboration, and so ABQ Free Press, there's copies everywhere, pick one up. We're delighted to have one of the directors from the Vortex Theater here. Director David Jones is with us today. David, good to meet you and have you on the program.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having us.
Well, you're dusting off a little Shakespeare here for us.
There's a great song in Kiss Me Kate called Brush Up Your Shakespeare. And that's what we're doing. 2 plays in Civic Plaza in repertory, one more weekend, but it's been a great run so far, and we're having fun. Lots of people coming, big crowds.
People love their theater out here. There's no doubt about it.
They do, and it's no secret that Shakespeare outdoors in the summer is a tried and true formula from New York and London, all across the country, and really around the world.
What do you think it is about being outside that really pulls people to the Shakespeare, the whole experience?
Part of it is it's just a nice evening out. It's just a pleasant experience. But Shakespeare started outdoors. Shakespeare wrote for the out of doors. His theater had no roof. And there's a way in which the plays are meant to breathe big. They're not chamber dramas. They're not small things. Big casts, big stories, many scenes, lots of characters, and so there's a kind of big, broad quality to them. They're more like big action pictures 400 years ago.
Which don't play as well on a small screen.
Yeah.
You want to see them on a big screen. So that's a great explanation.
So if we go down to Civic Plaza, are you all set up in some fashion down there, or is what's the setup like? What do you have?
Well, first of all, people don't have to bring chairs.
Okay.
We have chairs.
Okay, good.
And they don't have to bring umbrellas because we have a shaded, covered stage.
Okay.
And audience area. And they shouldn't really bring picnics because this isn't like being on the lawn and you know, at the outdoors at the zoo. Yeah, what we've done is to take the big stage of Civic Plaza, which is a big, huge, scallopy area,
yeah, it is,
and turn that into the theater itself, both for the audience and the show, the actors. The audience is kind of wrapped around them, but the audience is covered, they're protected, there's a backdrop. There are all kinds of good things about doing them on the plaza like that. There are lights and dressing rooms and lots of the conveniences you need in a theater.
Sure.
There they are. So actually, if people show up at 4th and Marquette and walk in, or any other way, and walk into Civic Plaza, it will all get taken care of.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, we have a scene we're going to do today. Describe what we're about to see.
The 2 plays that we're doing are A Midsummer Night's Dream, one of Shakespeare's most famous comedies, and Romeo and Juliet, one of the world's most famous love stories, perhaps the most famous. And in Romeo and Juliet, and we have our Romeo and our Juliet here, Jerome Alona and Sage Hughes, there's a famous scene in which they meet. And if the actors will do that scene, I can tell you a few things about it once they finish. So they meet at a party, and he's a Montague, she's a Capulet, but they don't know this. They're just a boy and a girl who meet at a party and have a scene, and it's quick, and it goes like this.
All right, here we go.
If I profaned with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine, the gentle fine is this, my lips, 2 blushing pilgrims ready stand to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss.
Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hand too much, which mannerly devotion shows in this. For saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss.
Have not saints lips and holy palmers too?
Aye, pilgrim. Lips that they must use in prayer.
Why then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. they pray. Grant thou lest faith to despair.
Saints do not move, though grant for prayer's sake.
Then move not while my prayer's effect I take. Thus from my lips, by yours, my sin is purged.
Then have my lips the sin that they have took?
Sin from thy lips, oh trespass sweetly urged. Give me my sin again.
You kiss by the book.
Very nice.
There's an interesting feature of this scene, which is this is an intensely poetic play, not only with famous lines, what light through yonder window breaks, etc. But that scene is structured exactly like a Shakespearean sonnet. Shakespeare wrote lots of sonnets, 14-line poems that are structured in a particular way. And although the dialogue goes back and forth between one character and another, it's 14 lines, and when you look at it on the page, the rhyme scheme is exactly the rhyme scheme of a sonnet. In fact, there's also a famous prologue to Romeo and Juliet in which a chorus talks about the star-crossed lovers and makes another, the two houses that are at war, etc. Yeah. And that too is structured like a sonnet. So what Shakespeare was doing in this play was kind of embedding poetic structures inside the story of a couple of kids who are kissing.
It's
now,
wonderful.
I remember the prologue to Romeo and Juliet. There's somebody that comes out and they set the scene. Like
two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene. And then it goes on about how they break to new mutiny and bad things happen to the kids and all that. In our play, we say it's in Verona, but it's really in contemporary Albuquerque. We've translated both of the plays into New Mexican settings. Romeo and Juliet is contemporary Burque, where there's a crime scene at the beginning and some reference to police, allegations of police brutality, etc. That's been added to Shakespeare. And in Midsummer Night's Dream, it takes place in 19th century New Mexico, kind of in a more rural place where Anglos and Hispanics and Indians, in fact, are all mixed up.
This is fascinating. So now, are both productions at the same time? What happens?
They're in alternating nights.
Okay.
We've done 3 weekends already. We opened with Romeo and Juliet, then we opened Midsummer, then we began to alternate them. And this weekend, for instance, Thursday night is Midsummer Night's Dream. Saturday, we have Friday off. Saturday is Romeo and Juliet, the last performance. And then Sunday night is the last performance of A Midsummer Night's Dream. And if I should add as the salesman here that if people want to get tickets to these things, they should do so quickly because these productions are going to sell out. And they can buy tickets at holdmyticket.com, which handles a lot of city business in this way.
Very nice.
Yeah.
David, I can tell that you're a great director because you have the heart of a teacher.
Well, I may have the vices of a teacher because I did so for 45 years.
I really can sense that. You know, you just have a kindness about you and a passion for Shakespeare and for the material, and I can just tell that the actors really receive that.
Well,
it's easy
to have a passion for Shakespeare. The world's most famous playwright, most popular playwright, most performed playwright in history and today. Across the world.
David, where do you weigh in on the Shakespeare debate? Some people have put forward the theory that Shakespeare was really actually several different people writing these plays. Where do you fit in that debate?
I fit in that debate that all of these theories are sort of like the most crackpot versions of the Kennedy assassination conspiracy theories. There is no convincing evidence that William Shakespeare from Stratford-upon-Avon didn't write his plays. And there's a huge body of evidence that William Shakespeare from Stratford-upon-Avon did write his plays. In fact, until the middle of the 19th century, nobody had any doubts on this subject. in his own time and for several hundred years after, until an American woman who was later confined to a mental asylum named Delia Bacon, excuse me, came up with the bright idea that Shakespeare couldn't possibly have written these plays because he was a middle-class person. He didn't go to university, he didn't have a title, he wasn't like Sir Francis Bacon or Sir Francis Drake or Lord anything. He was just an ordinary guy who had done this. She sold this idea to some people like Mark Twain and Henry James and other people, but it's cockamamie, and it has been it's been elaborated into the most remarkable and bizarre theories. There's one in which Shakespeare's plays were actually written by a consortium. Many people who would get together of an evening and decide, okay, well, I guess to be or not to be, that is the question, whether it is, et cetera, and that one of these people, that these people were in this consortium because they were all experts in things. Shakespeare couldn't possibly have known, the theory goes, so much about minerals and statecraft and sailing and all the things that come up in his plays, etc. So they had to have had experts there to do all that sort of stuff. And in one of my favorite example of this is a theory in which one of the people who collaborated was the person who knew the most about politics in Shakespeare's time, and that was Queen Elizabeth. And you can see her now coming out of whichever palace she was in and taking a boat down the Thames to go into some smoky room with a bunch of other people to sit around and write the kind of poetry you just heard
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
no.
It
did not happen.
And it really doesn't make any sense that Francis Bacon or the Earl of Oxford or anyone else wrote the plays. There are many good books that debunk these theories, but of course, conspiracy theories are always fun.
Yeah.
They're more fun than the truth. Right.
I'm so glad I asked you that.
Oh, there's your answer. There's one answer. And most Shakespeareans, most people who teach or deal with Shakespeare will give you the same answer. But there are a few doubters, skeptics, and who are in the theater. It's interesting.
So the debate
David
continues.
Jones directing Midsummer Night's Dream and Romeo and Juliet on Civic Plaza. Hold my ticket for tickets for the final weekend of these outdoor performances of Shakespeare. Amber, that was great. David, great to meet you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Fascinating.
Thanks for having us.
Back in a moment.